Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Loving Challenger podcast. I'm your host, Megan Bhatia. I realize that I record these things because it's much easier for me to say, hey, I've already talked about that concept. Here you go. And I find myself talking about this one. I don't know yet what to call it. I recorded a video a couple years ago on YouTube, and I called it the 3 C's of non-binary thinking. I may call it something like the updated yin-yang symbol, or from the binary to the continuum, because I don't know, give me some ideas if you know what to call this thing. But to me, it's a mental model, and it's a way to understand myself and the world. And I found it very helpful specifically in these very polarized times where I realized binary thinking, which is right, wrong, good, bad, these extremist opposite thinking, it doesn't work for us anymore. It really doesn't. It doesn't work for us the way that we view ourselves. It doesn't work for us to have good, healthy relationships. So what I'm going to introduce is this idea of the continuum, which is one of the 3 C's. But I'm also going to talk about contrast and context, because I think contrast, context, and continuum are the 3 mental concepts that are really going to help you as you move forward in this world that is rapidly changing. So I'm going to talk about these concepts very basically first, and then I'm going to talk about the way that it can help you, and then maybe a pitfall of that particular, that particular thing, C, that it is. So I have a little drawing to go along with this. If you're just listening to it, I will try to describe it, but best to watch on video if you can. The symbol is, I just drew it out. It's nothing fancy. I used my daughter's pencils and whatever. So if you can't see it, I'm holding what looks like an oblong oval that it fades from white to black, and then the outside of it fades from black to white in the opposite color. So if that makes sense. I'm looking to do an AI video of this that would make it a little easier. But the first C that I want to point out is the one that we're really familiar with in the normal yin-yang symbol, and that is the contrast of the black and white. And this is something we inherently know. We feel it. The, polar opposites, we want to call it. This is the world that we're living in very much. And the one thing that we forget to take into consideration is the context. Context is extremely, extremely important, because if you find yourself on one side, like let's say you're someone that doesn't really speak up for yourself, and someone else that's on the other end of the spectrum that's always speaking up and actually has a hard time listening to other people, if their medicine to that person not speaking up would be like, oh yeah, you just need to listen more. That's what I hear all the time. But the other person actually really needs to speak up more. So one person's medicine can be another person's poison in very extreme terms if we are not taking into consideration the context in which they are found. Okay, so I'm going to come back to context, but that's one. I'm going to fold the paper differently. And we're going to call this contrast, or lack thereof. In the middle of this continuum, when there is no contrast from the outside world, we have a hard time orienting. So this to me is like growing up in a country and never leaving it. You never get contrast for the things that you grew up in that you take for granted. It's like the water you swim in, because you haven't had contrast yet. And contrast is really important for us to navigate in the world, to know, oh, that is other, or I am different. Contrast isn't inherently bad. Contrast can be great. And I'm going to come back to that concept. But you see along the line of continuum, from the inside to outside, at a certain point where it all kind of mixes into gray, there's no contrast. So that's one of the C's. And then the last C here, if I take my paper all the way out with the nice folds, is continuum. And this is something where you can find yourself over on one side and then test out the other side. And once you have, look, we're going to do this again. I'm going to do this with my example. I'll call it maybe the more simple example of being vegetarian, right? So let's say first my world was just this, like I only eat meat. I didn't know that there was another option. Then I realized, oh, I'm going to flip flop. I'm going to just, be vegetarian. And then I went over to the other side. And then what that does, if we still keep the binary, thinking here, it creates another right or wrong. So in the continuum, now that I've tested out both, being a full carnivore, omnivore, and a vegetarian, now I have the whole spectrum available. And this is where I am right now in my life. I can choose when I eat meat, what meat I eat. I don't view it as bad or wrong like I did when I was pure vegetarian. I also did the same thing with drinking alcohol. I stopped drinking alcohol for a year or two. And then I looked at everyone drinking alcohol, and it was like I shamed them and I judged them. So really all I did was flip flop from one extreme to the other. But now that I've opened that up, now I can decide when I drink alcohol. I know the reason I do it. I do it much more consciously. I can actually float all the way in this nuanced area in the continuum of, alcohol is not bad. There's health benefits to not drinking it. There's social benefits to drinking it moderately. Like now I can find myself in this spectrum here saying, okay, a glass or two of wine, one night a week, 2 nights a week. Great. Like, okay, that's what I choose. No wine, no problem. I just did this with coffee. I realized I was very addicted to coffee, and the idea of not having coffee was very scary. So then I didn't have coffee for 3 weeks. Yeah, it wasn't 3 weeks. It was about a week. I had to taper down, and then I tapered back up. But the point I'm getting at is, if we don't see the whole continuum, we will continue to flip flop back and forth between the extremes. And that can make it really hard to have a coherent community life where, some people are over on this side, some people are over on this side. Those are labels. What if you're like right in between? And politically speaking, I won't get political here, but many people don't identify just purely with one side or the other. It's nuanced. Everything's nuanced. So to me, I live in a world of grays and spectrum. And what I take into consideration is the context of it, the contrast, and where in the world, where on the spectrum do I want to fall? So, okay, what are the pitfalls? Here in this one, I've already talked a little bit about the context, where one person's medicine could be another's poison, really. If we don't take into consideration the context that someone's in, that's not super helpful. That's maybe a pitfall. Oh yeah, the benefit is that we can show up differently if we change our lives, and how you are inherently. They're not right or wrong. Have you ever tried to put yourself into a different context? I used to be a director of a nonprofit, and I managed a really large team. And one of the directors that I worked with made a really good counselor and not necessarily a great salesperson. Her skill set was in the counseling world. So all we did was, I realized she's a perfectly great employee. We don't need to fire her. Let's just put her where her skill set is going to allow her to shine. So that's changing the context. So where in your life would it be helpful to change the context in which you're showing up? It could be a relationship. How are you showing up in that relationship? Does the way that you and that other person get along, is that allowing you to to show up and thrive in that relationship? And if not, you might have to think about changing the context of how you're showing up, in what relationships, in what work, and where do you live? I put my body in warm weather because my body's happier. I'm happier. I changed the context. Changing context, though, doesn't always work. If you decide you're going to get on a plane and go live in another country, you're still going to you're still going to be the same person. Certain problems are still going to be there, still going to follow you or show up. So that is context. Contrast, again, I'm going to go back to, this is why travel is so important. Because without context or contrast, you don't get to see yourself. This is why actually having conversations with people who you disagree with is fantastic. What if you let go of this idea of being right or wrong, and you just realize, wow, how they view the world is really different than how I view the world. And if I didn't have the conversation with that person, I actually wasn't really aware of the fact that I valued XYZ, or this is what I believed in, because I got the contrast of someone believing something different than me, someone doing something different than me. I was able to see myself more clearly. I'm always so grateful to have contrast in my life so that I can get to know myself better. So it's a beautiful, beautiful upside of creating and embracing contrast, not as a bad thing. And then the last piece of this continuum, I mean, I think examples are here anywhere. Oh yeah, I was going to say one example. This has been coming up a lot. Have you ever said never? I will never do that. I've said many things. I will never be vegetarian. And then I didn't eat meat for 5 years, or I was a pescatarian, actually. I did eat fish. I'll never move out of the city. I'll never need IVF. Like, I literally said these words out loud many times. And then, of course, I did move out of the city. Now I live in the jungle. I did become a vegetarian. I did have IVF. That's how I needed what I needed to get pregnant. So many of these things I realize when I say never, all it is a judgment of the opposite side, that I'm firmly trenched in one side, and I'm saying, I will never be over there. This happens too a lot when we judge people. And I notice that I am very often given the opportunity to experience that other end of the extreme. And finally, when I do, usually by forced circumstance, the spectrum becomes available, because then I realize, oh, wow, I was really judging someone that was over here without having lived it myself. Or wow, I was judging this thing that I thought I would never be because I was so overly identified on the other end of the spectrum. And then once you open up the spectrum, oh my God, it's so much more fun. You can play. You don't need to be overly identified with either side. I remember when I stopped drinking, I definitely was like super judgy about people that drank. Same thing with not eating meat. And now I've been able to find where I want to be on that spectrum any given day, any given week or month. I'm just doing it with much more clarity. I will actually add the same thing too between monogamy and polyamory. I mean, if anybody has been following this channel long enough, that's another huge relational spectrum. And there's no right or wrong. I definitely was in the camp, of monogamy before without realizing that polyamory or anything open existed. Then I was wholeheartedly in the polyamory camp. And now I feel like I've opened up the spectrum. Now I can choose based on my own needs or my partner or partner's needs. Like, where am I in the spectrum? Do I want to be more monogamous? Do I want to be completely open? Now can I play in that range based on full choice and not by default, and not by judging the other side, by fully letting both ends of the spectrum be available and saying, where do I want to be on this now? So this is what I've been playing with. I would love your thoughts on this. I don't know what to call it. I've called the 3 C's of non-binary thinking, updated yin-yang symbol, the mental model of a continuum. I don't know. Tell me, I'm so curious if you found any of this helpful for you to navigate this specific world right now. I'm totally distracted now by my hair, which I got cut. Also, do you like the short haircut? Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. I realize that I record these so that I can share them with people. And this is a concept that I know it's been coming up a lot. So I feel like in my own creative process, if I don't get it out, it still stays stuck. So the whole point and reason for creating these podcasts is to share ideas and to move them along so that I continue to have new ideas, new concepts to play with. So thank you for listening. Share if you found it helpful. A little plug for my women's groups. I do weekly conversations with women who are looking to connect, looking to be safe and held in a group, looking to share all of these things I call emergent healing or emergent wisdom. That is the group called the Loving Challengers Community, and I'm happy to share more about it. I'll put a link in when I publish this. And I also do coaching. one-on-one. So if you're looking to have a breakthrough in your life, if you are looking to be less judgmental, it's not through force. You won't get there. We can work through some more of these things in your life to see how you can open up more of the spectrum of your life if you're looking for change. Okay, really, that's it now. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day.